Hello everyone, my name is Kevin Rissmiller from Rissmiller Media. I am the author of the book I Worked for Trump, and this evening I'm going to do a Facebook Live and YouTube video simultaneously reading the chapter in the book titled Legal Situation and Retaliation. No, I didn't give it chapter numbers, which I'm regretting obviously, but the name and title of this chapter is Legal Situation and Retaliation. It's date stamped 12:06 a.m. 6/16/2016 when I wrote this. And I'm just going to go ahead and, before I jump in, just say if you're interested in buying any of my books, go to Amazon.com, type in my first and last name in order to purchase my books. All right, let me just go ahead and jump right in. Legal Situation and Retaliation. So, I referred to being in a motel room typing this book and not in my van. That is because a couple, Frank and Norma, who walked by my van day after day, took some time to talk to me. They were not in much better shape than I am, but if it were not their Social Security checks. They took the time to talk to me and offer me a place to shower, and to even stay with them in their room, so as to not suffer some of the hottest days of the year so far. The best part, a place to concentrate and work on this book, to type it up and edit it in time for fast publication. Okay, so the satellite signal went out, and I had to hook up the external speaker to my little $10 radio to listen to the Herman Cain show on WOKV while this signal disruption storm pushes through Jacksonville's north side. I also have my first session one-on-one with the therapist about being attacked by a Roman Catholic priest, Father Ivan Payne, when I was an 11-year-old boy at 4 p.m. But I also have material to go see what they used to euphemistically call a navigator. In my days, they were called social workers at the Mental Health Resource Center to be assessed for assistance. Well, that is what the priest/pastor at the local Roman Catholic Church, Father Ligori, when I asked for help and assistance, this place is supposed to be for helping the homeless people. I admit, the anxiety level is ratcheted up a bit because the threat looms at such a facility that they could assess me crazy and involuntarily lock my ass up and load me full of dope, leaving me things, including this book, vulnerable to be taken. Leaving my things, including this book, vulnerable to be taken. My van has gas in the tank and valuables and money in my wallet, the composition books with the handwritten versions of my books, and more, all at risk. This is so frustrating. I'm supposed to have blind faith and trust another government-funded agency. There is a very heavy rain as I am typing. I lay on the floor of a motel room at the best airport inn on the north side of Jacksonville as the guest of a couple who have their share of issues, which I do not yet have their permission to list here. But those labels do not matter. They are helping me, letting me use their shower, their air conditioning, television. I get to feel less abnormal while they share their room with me. I am grateful. It is rather sad how the downtrodden are often more the ones who offer one another help than those who have more fortunate resources. I do have my democratic tendencies being in need, knowing that the blue states historically offer far more resources to those less fortunate. Being trapped in a red state that has a shamefully low amount of resources available for those desperately in need is very frustrating. What I'm trying to say, more or less, the place the government agency, the Department of Corrections, have forced me to live in is heavily laced with homeless, drug addicts, prostitution, thieves, and all the lower castes of society. They told me I have to live in this area during my curfew hours. This is required of me. I have no choice. They have placed on me restrictions worse than those that sex offenders and sex predators are required to follow, because I am not just on CRD, a parole-like condition release, but they've also overlaid all the sex offender requirements on me, even though I am not a registered sex offender or predator, but treated as one. The day my conditions end and I am again granted my freedom, I am not on any list or required to live anywhere. I will be free to go and do as I please. But until that moment arrives, I am treated as the worst of the worst. In my opinion, this is rooted in the fact that as I fought against the false charges of the case against me, I also tried to exercise what I thought were my First Amendment rights to grieve the government, and sued every entity that I felt were violating my civil rights. I sued the jail, Duval County Jail, because of its overcrowding. The Duval County Jail, when first built, had 2 beds in each cell. This is an enclosed facility with no windows you can open, run with air conditioning only. To increase its capacity, they went into the cells and welded in an additional bunk, thus making 3 beds per cell. Then they would also add as needed basis what they call boat beds, called that because they resembled plastic rowboats, which they would have inmates sleep in on the floor area of the day room like a refugee camp. The problem with this, in my view and case against the jail, was that this exceeds the design capacity of the original design. It wrongly places all in the facility, both inmate and officers and civilian staff, at risk of great bodily harm and increased likelihood of death in the event of a disaster scenario, meaning if there was a fire, for example. The first intended design took into its escape plans and total breathable air available to those there and the number of bodies to move through the escape routes, fire exits, and the like, as the number of beds in the original design. Because they've added to that total number and increased the number of people who will need to breathe the air and force themselves through the exits to escape in a fire, and now to exceed the original design capacity, thus placing into danger those numbers now in excess of the first approved in the plans of the building. In the overcrowding places my life and the lives of all those there in danger of death and great bodily harm by their increasing the numbers of citizens being housed against their will in what I now see as a pending death trap. This was such a valid argument that it even attracted the attention of a well-known civil rights attorney in Jacksonville, Bill Shepard, who had one of his partners lending me support in the form of legal folders, pads, and legal materials, and supplies for my work in the case against the jail in federal court I had filed in the form of what was known as a 1983 lawsuit. I had taken to file in the U.S. federal courts as a pro se, meaning I was representing myself as an attorney in the case. Let us just say that the jail did not take too kindly to such a case, and in violation of my First Amendment rights, retaliated repeatedly against me. They ramped up the volume of times I was shaken down. A shakedown is when the officers kick you out of the cell, and in violation of standing rules and laws in place, as I knew them at the time, placed me beyond the view of my cell and what they were doing, and they would, in my view, ransack and take my belongings and legal materials and evidence gathered in the form of statements and affidavits made by other inmates addressing the facts of the case as I was filing in federal court in the case. They would take my legal materials and documents, and in some cases would photocopy them. I knew this because in a few instances, they returned the copies by mistake instead of the originals. All violation of the law and my civil rights under the Constitution of the United States of America, Amendment 1, one's right to grieve the government. This is only one example. I filed a variety of cases. I filed over them taking my legal materials and legal mail. I filed against the chief of the jail, the sheriff, the state attorney, the public defender, who had contributed to change what lawyer represented me so that my case kept getting set back. So my case was unduly extended and my rights again violated, all to no avail, but further placed a target on me, on my, what was known to inmates as the good old boys network here in the South. If you had money or were part of the system or elite, then you were dealt a different brand of justice, and the less fortunate, like me, again, unfair. Another case I had filed that the civil rights attorney had really liked and first drew his attention was that I was claiming that the cumulative total of conditions in the jail, not just the one thing here or there that they did or to further the inconvenience to make uncomfortable the people held in jail against their will, given ridiculous bails that may as well have been no bail at all. It was placed so high only the rich could afford to avail themselves of, but that the total of all the minor violations compiled together intentionally, the lack of fresh air, outside contact, physical contact with loved ones, and a long list of other inhumane treatment of the people in there, totaled together was intended to mentally abuse the individuals to the point that they were not just willing but desperate to take the plea bargains offered them just to escape the horrible conditions afforded them by their confinement. That makes sense. They break people over time to get them to take pleas so they don't further clog up the trial system with the cases going to cases going to trial. They further exacerbate the issue by rendering the harassment sentences to those who dare try to take their cases to trial. Meaning, basically, if you take your case to trial, we will convict you and give you the maximum for daring to cost the state so much money for holding a trial. State-sponsored extortion, in essence. See, that drew giant targets on me, and because I made waves, they've directed harsh treatment against me for beginning to end instead of being a good little inmate and playing along with the system. I dare to stand up for my rights. There are many, many examples of this behavior I could fill volumes of books with. But because that stuff would not only bore you to death after a while and eventually seem petty and frivolous, because you didn't have it happen to you over and over again, you would think me a whiny bitch after a litany of complaints. I'm really not, but I am detail-oriented, and what is right is right, and what is wrong is wrong. Besides, people forget that people in jail are supposed to be considered innocent until proven guilty, thus a regular citizen with rights. The system is badly broken, like much of the rest of the government. We need to fix so much. And good leadership at the top is how you start the process to change the direction of a ship, a company, or a country. We need new leadership to change things. We need Trump. New date stamp of 10:44 a.m. 6/17/2016. I failed today. Last night, the female host where I'm staying was saying she was suffering. I'm getting a notice on my. I'm going to stop here because it looks like I'm running out of storage space on the video for my YouTube. So I'm going to finish this chapter up in the next video. I bookmarked it, and I hope you've enjoyed what I've read so far. I've already gone almost 15 minutes, so I'm going to say thank you for listening. I'll finish the chapter off in the next video. Thank you very much. And if you want to purchase your own copy of any of my books, go to Amazon.com and just simply type in my first and last name, Kevin Rissmiller. Thank you very much, and I better end this before it screws it up.